Hi, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Peter Fusco. You probably heard me on the Peter Fusco program, my podcast, at pjfusco.com. Normally, I do this, and I think I probably will do this on the podcast, but I just, because I think it gets more exposure on YouTube, and it's something that I wanted to do just because I've had it, and maybe a lot of you have had it too. This is then an open letter to Glenn Beck, Steve or Stu Bergeret, I guess that's his name, I'm not sure, Pat Gray, and the guy named Jeffy or Jeff Fisher. These are all people on Glenn Beck's morning program. So if you give me a chance, please listen closely. It's not a long letter. It's just I think it's something that should be said. It goes like this. Gentlemen, I've been a fan of sorts for many years. I say of sorts because a lot of what you guys do is great, but like all such endeavors, you have your moments when it all goes into the crapper pretty fast. Some segments have been so painful I've turned off the radio. Then again, there are your glorious moments of comedic genius, incisive and poignant commentary, and downright tear-jerking sincerity, which separates you from the rest of the crowd. Perhaps it is success that does it to anyone experiencing such monumental profit from their efforts. Not monetary, although one hopes for that as well, but the kind of profit that puts you in a position of having voice, sufficient to make a difference in the nation, if not the world. But as they say, with great power comes greater responsibility. That responsibility is nowhere more important than in the avoidance of hypocrisy. For once legitimately branded a hypocrite, one is tainted for life. Everything that comes after is at least suspect, if not entirely suspicious. There is, in my opinion, nothing more hateful than a hypocrite, which simply defined as someone who says one thing and does another, often diametrically opposed to that which he preaches. There's little doubt in my mind that if by some stroke of fate any of you actually read this or listen to this, that is Glenn and the rest of the crew, you will eviscerate me one way or the other. Doesn't matter. I'm nobody. You can't hurt me. I'm like a pauper in debt. There's no blood in this stone. But in your evisceration, I am sure you will sense its lack of real justice. It's one thing to tear apart someone who has done you malicious harm. Quite another when there is an element of truth to the observations he makes about you. In shows past, Glenn and others have discussed how truly difficult the road to success has been for him. We've heard really quite remarkable stories about how the Blaze and all its subsidiary parts came about. From what I gather, it has been nothing short of miraculous that you're even around, let alone so successful. In short, by your own admission, you beat the odds and did the impossible. According to you guys, Glenn is still pushing the envelope and succeeding. Many times I've heard Glenn ascribe his success to the will of God. I applaud that sentiment, since I too believe any success a person may attain is a gift from God. The problem I have is that when someone else seeks to attain success on a matter or in a way that you find disagreeable, your response is to cut him down. That may not apply to everyone, but it certainly applies to most people you don't agree with. And I'm not talking about liberals and progressives. I think Americans, once they understand what liberals and progressives have done and are doing to this country, pretty much agree that they're the most hateful people, the most screwed up and morally bankrupt people in the country. I'm talking about Americans who are looking to reclaim the United States from all those people who want to take it apart, including illegal aliens. I'm not a defender of Donald Trump or anyone else on the Republican side running for the presidency. None of them need my sword. I am a defender of their right to speak up, and to the American people, without Glenn Beck and others in the media cutting them to shreds because they don't like what they're saying and then taking to the airwaves or the pages of their magazines to decry liberals for doing the same thing to those with whom those conservatives and pundits agree. That's the definition of hypocrisy. The vitriol heaped on Donald Trump by you guys makes me cringe for its hypocrisy. On one show, you're talking about Christian values and how you pray and ask God for the blessings he so generously bestows on those who follow in Christ's forgiving and loving footsteps. And then in the next show, you're belittling a man in the most vicious manner because he said he wants to do something you choose to believe is impossible. Build an impregnable barrier on our southern border at Mexico's expense. That's what Donald Trump said. Radical? Yeah. But I don't hear anything better from you guys or any of the other candidates except similar solutions without anything comparing to the substance of Trump's plan, and always with the proviso that we subsequently change our immigration laws to accommodate more of the same people whose relatives invaded our country illegally in the first place. You've ridiculed Trump for talking about punishing those countries who cheat us on trade, like China, who places tariffs on our products, hacks our computer systems, engages in an arms race with us, and sells us its manufactured products without our placing a tariff on them. Where is your solution to that problem? Maybe a radical one is necessary, if for no other reason than to wake up the rest of the world that we're not going to be suckers anymore. Today you harassed a caller. He was a jerk, I'll freely admit it, about a 35% tariff Trump would place on Chinese goods. You said that would be the tariff, that Trump would institute a 35% tariff on Chinese goods. I'm not sure where you got that figure, but you went on to say it would be harmful to American consumers. I want to ask you this. Would it be any more harmful than the loss of millions of jobs to the Chinese as a result of their currency manipulation and the dumping of their products on us without paying a tariff to us? It seems to me that America is going to suffer one way or the other. I'm for suffering if it brings about positive change for our country. I'm not for suffering with the outcome that our enemies become stronger as we weaken ourselves intentionally. I want to ask you, who, Glenn, is the fool here? You complain that Donald Trump is no better than a politician because he played the game with them in order to do business in New York. I live in New York. I know what it takes to do business in New York. And let me ask you this. How did you do your business in Texas? Did you simply pony up whenever it was whatever the state told you to? Or did you not seek to minimize your exposure and expense as much as possible? Are you not then playing politics as well? Oh, no, that's right. You're following the letter of the law. There's a difference, isn't there? Not really. You ridiculed Trump for being a politician who says he's not. How many of the candidates you were supporting have said they're not part of the political establishment, but are? You belittled Trump for making promises about dealing with ISIS, but not offering concrete plans to accomplish the goal. Now, mind you, you weren't the only one that did this. But I want to ask you guys, how many other candidates have offered concrete plans to deal with ISIS? More to the point, aren't you the same guy who castigated Barack Obama every time he telegraphed what he was going to do in the Middle East to fight Syria and then ISIS? Why wouldn't you laud Trump for smartly keeping his hand close to the vest in that regard? Trump, with all his ups and downs, which are not only expected but part and parcel of every businessman's story, has spent a life building. Can you say the same thing, Glenn? You admit you spent a great deal of your time as a great deal of your life, as a profligate, and then you changed. Who are you to make statements about someone else's life of failures and triumphs? Look, this is the issue with Glenn Beck, Rush Limbaugh, Bill O'Reilly, Mark Levin, Michael Savage, and to a lesser degree, Sean Hannity, who at least has expressed an interest in running for public office. I like all you guys, always have. But to a person, not one of you has come from behind the comfort of his microphone to say, I'm done talking, I'm going to run for office myself and show the power elite that there are those of us willing to shake things up sufficiently in order to set the United States on the right path again. Oh, I know, the lame excuse that you guys always use. Well, I can do more good from my studio than I ever could in office. It flies in the faces of all those patriots you claim to honor, and I might add, write about. Imagine if George Washington said, I can do more good from Mount Vernon than commanding the troops. Or if John Adams had said, yeah, you're right. A Declaration of Independence is a bad idea. I think I'll go back home to Abigail and the kids. Or if Lincoln said, let me sit this one out. So, guys, when you're sitting behind those mics in the future, Glenn, especially you, maybe you should think about apologizing to Donald Trump if for no other reason than he's putting his money where his mouth is on a seemingly impossible dream, just exactly the way you did and are doing on your own. I'm Peter Fusco. Please visit me at pjfusco.com. Thank you.